He doesn't exist." With those words, spoken without any conscious thought or effort on his part, Luke Skywalker sat upright in bed and looked around at the dimly illuminated chamber. Beside him, his wife Mara stirred, and he glanced down at her. "Who doesn't exist?" "I don't know. An enemy. You dreamed about him?" He nodded. "I've had the dream a couple of times before. It's not just a dream. It's coming to me through currents in the Force. He's all wrapped up in shadows, a dark hooded cloak, but more than that, shadows of light and—" Luke shook his head, struggling for the correct word. "And ignorance, and denial, and he brings great pain to the galaxy, and to me." "Well, if he brings pain to the galaxy, you're obviously going to feel it," Mara said. "No, to me personally, in addition to his other evil." Luke sighed and lay down again. "It's too vague, and when I'm awake and I try to peer into the future to find him, I can't. Because he doesn't exist. That's what the dream tells me." Luke hissed in aggravation. "I have an idea," Mara said. "Tell me. Let's wait until he shows up, then crush him." Luke smiled. "All right." He closed his eyes and his breathing slowed, and within a minute, the rhythm of his breathing became that of natural sleep.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Random House Audio presents Star Wars: Legacy of the Force, Betrayal, by Aaron Allston, read for you by Marc Thompson.
Coruscant.
Leia Organa Solo, one-time princess of the world of Alderaan, former chief of state of the New Republic, now a Jedi Knight, stood before the portal dressed in all-white robes, suitable to either a Jedi or a politician in informal surroundings. Leia's husband, Han Solo, one of the most famous men in the galaxy, moved up beside her. He was wearing his favorite clothes, dark military trousers decorated with the red Corellian blood stripes he had earned when he was a younger man, light long-sleeve shirt, black vest, practical black boots. A chime filled the air. First through the door were Luke Skywalker and Mara Jade Skywalker. For this occasion, Luke wore his black Jedi robe and accoutrements, a stark contrast to his still fair complexion and bright blonde hair. Mara wore more traditional Jedi robes in browns and tans, and a red belt that set off her red hair. With them was R2-D2, the plug-shaped astromech who had variously served Luke and the Solos for decades, and the little droid made as many musical, wheedling noises of appreciation during their tour of the Solos' new quarters as the humans made verbal comments. Next to arrive, just a few minutes later, were Jason and Ben, led from room to room by C-3PO. Jason made non-committal noises about the antechamber, living chamber, master bedroom, bedrooms for Leia's Nogri bodyguards, Meewal and Cockmane, guest bedrooms, library, refreshers, furnished balcony, kitchen, dining room, and communication center, all but the last decorated and furnished in warm-colored hardwoods, some with dark carpets and some with pebbled flooring. In the living chamber, C-3PO, the gold-toned protocol droid who had served Han and Leia faithfully, if fussily, for 4 decades, held out his carefully arrayed tray of geometrically shaped cheeses and fungus crackers to Mara. "Jaina just called in. She and Zek are just a few minutes out," Leia said. Han straightened irritably on the couch. "And Zek? Who may I ask invited Zek? He's not family." Luke and Mara managed to say, "Not yet," simultaneously. Han glared at them. "I invited him," Leia said. "Han, he's her partner, her Jedi partner. If he were her, say, smuggling partner, would you send him off?" "Depends on how he looks at her." Leia shook her head. "Jaina says they're friends, just friends." The door chime rang again. This time it was Jaina and Zek. Jaina, too, was in standard Jedi robes. She was of about the same height as her mother and more slender of build, with dark eyes and delicate features. Zach, her partner, was in his late 20s, slightly younger than Jaina, but was otherwise her opposite in almost every way. Tall enough for his scalp to scrape the top of the doorway as he entered. His long black hair pulled back in a ponytail, he would stand out in any crowd regardless of the cut and color of his traveler's robes. The argument began over spice loaf, the traditional Corellian dish. A dense ground meat spiced to the heat tolerance of the diners was, as Leia had prepared it, both mild and savory, and was not likely to cause disagreement all by itself. It was merely the course that was on everyone's plate at the point Han decided to become argumentative. He set his fork down and looked suspiciously at his nephew Ben.
"You were doing what?"
"Making sure they did what the government said." The boy returned his uncle's stare, unintimidated. "Stop making weapons except for the government."
"Well, that's an oversimplification," Jason said. "This Adumari company was producing explosive ordnance beyond what was permitted for delivery to the Galactic Alliance Armed Forces or otherwise legal as per Order GAO 1133B. That is, beyond the amounts necessary for their own planetary defense. In other words, they were assembling proton torpedoes and other missiles for sale to other planets, not for delivery to the GA."
"So?" Han asked. "That's not business for the Jedi. That's a problem for politicians with nothing better to do. Next thing you know, we'll have Jedi walking the government halls on Corellia and telling us what to do."
Leia smiled. Han hadn't lived on Corellia for decades, but in his heart he was all Corellian, embodying the swagger, the cockiness, the carefree attitude that the citizens of that system considered essential elements of their culture. His exploits during the rebellion and up through the present day had made him dear to the hearts of the people of that system. The second best-known Corellian hero of the same era, Wedge Antilles, did live in the Corellian system, but he was more reserved, less brash, and simply hadn't captured the public's affection as Han had. "Han, the Corellians are playing a dangerous game," Luke said. "They're demanding all the advantages of Galactic Alliance membership, trade benefits, use of the GA communications and travel infrastructure, citizenship rights, all of it, but not contributing their fair share of Alliance overhead. They're dragging their heels on supplying ships and personnel to the military, on providing tax revenues."
"See, that's the thing."
Han pointed his fork at Luke's chest as if intending to jam it and probe around the heart and lungs.
"We can maintain our own military and not the tiny peacekeeping and police force the new laws are calling for. When the time comes for military action, the Corellians have always brought our forces up, under our own colors, even when we weren't members of whatever government was swinging the biggest stick at the time. We did it for the Old Republic and the New Republic. We did it in the Vong War."
Jaina grimaced. "Not a good example, Dad. How many lives, how many whole systems were lost in the Vong War because governments couldn't work together, didn't have standardized weapons, communications, tactics?" Han turned his scowl on his daughter.
"How many lives, how many whole systems were lost because the New Republic government was so bloated, impersonal, and stupid that it couldn't see when it was getting its rear end kicked and didn't care when millions of its people got killed? How many members of Borsk's old advisory council ran off to their homeworlds with personal yachts packed with treasure and left people behind to burn?"
"Which is exactly what Corellia is doing," Luke said. "They're trying to pack up their treasures and avoid the economic toll that rebuilding civilization is taking on the rest of the Galactic Alliance, while they're throwing up a shield of planetary pride to convince people that their decision is based on something other than selfishness and irresponsibility. And other systems are starting to look to Corellia in a leadership role. It's foolish to cast the Galactic Alliance as the Empire and Corellia as the Rebel Alliance, because that's what it might come to, a rebellion, a stupid and unnecessary one." "Luke," Mara said. Her voice was a whispered note of caution.
"Is that the position of the Jedi Order?" Han asked, voice rising. "What the galaxy needs is one language, one system of measurement, one uniform, one flag. Should we just cut the word no out of the language and substitute yes, sir, right away, sir, instead?"
"Han," Leia said, "not nice to argue in front of a guest."
"Zek's not a guest. He's the man chasing my daughter all over the galaxy."
"Dad."
"I think—"
Han paused and looked around the table, finally aware of all the eyes on him. He plunged his fork into the last piece of spice loaf on his plate and hurriedly swallowed the piece of meat.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?